Donna here is a homeschool mom of three. I think all of you know her by now because she's been everywhere. She's been uh, she's been guesting in so many opportunities to talk about homeschooling and home education because she's one of probably the best advocates that we have on homeschooling. Right? This lady is an amazing lady with so many achievements following her. But I think she would agree with me that her greatest achievement was to be a mom to her three
Yeah.
amazing kids, and of course
Four,
wife.
four,
Four.
four,
Four
four.
pala. Four amazing kids. I stand corrected. Four amazing kids. Three sons and one daughter.
Yes.
Okay, right. So welcome, Donna. Thank you for
So finally,
joining us. Yes.
thank you, Grace. I love the name Grace Days because it was Grace that allowed us to homeschool.
Totoo yan. What I really wanted to talk to you about is really about building community, as
Mhm.
homeschoolers. But before we
Yeah.
go into that, of course, before you build the community or before you got into the building of a community, you homeschooled first. You
Yes.
became a homeschool mom first, right? So just briefly, how did you get started? What led you to homeschool? I know you're a medical doctor, right?
Yes.
Was
Yes.
was that ever an issue of, I have a career to pursue, and then should I homeschool? Should I
Yes.
not homeschool?
By God's grace, we were exposed to the Tanchi family very early in my teen years. So homeschooling was something that was being done by this family. And then I was discipled by, navigators, missionaries that also, did some homeschooling. And so so we were always part of a discipleship group. So community was close to my heart. Then when my sister Felici got sort of like had children, she now began homeschooling. And then before you know it, I had my own. And when we came back from my med school and finished, I had one child. I just couldn't pursue my residency with a child. I just felt like I wanted to be home. And that's when Felici said, why don't you try homeschooling for a year? And before you know it, 1 year became 17 years. There was about 6 to 7 years that they were all home. And that was the preschool to grade 4, maybe nasunod-sunod sila. And we just, but those were the best years, I guess, di ba? And then there was a calling to lead a community, but then you always feel that you should be home first before leading a community to homeschool.
Right.
So I waited until, um, it was God's way of saying, now prioritize your home. And then that's when I led HAPI when my last was done. So that was 2018. That's when I took on the HAPI leadership. When wala na akong homeschool. So since it went online, I just clicked all my friends who homeschooled in my Facebook list.
Oh.
30 of them, and then it just
So that's
grew.
how homeschoolers of the Philippines, the
I
offline
just said
community
that
started.
create a group kasi hirap na yung email yung Yahoo groups.
Right, right. Oo, right.
It was very flat. So I just felt that, try natin to. Biglang before you know it. Yeah,
And at
that's it.
that time, everybody was going on Facebook, no? It was like
Yeah.
the new thing, so to
Yeah.
speak.
And I think being the youngest of 9 kids, I'm always the event organizer. I'm always the one that puts in order in facilitating a group, kahit na 9 kids, or 50 members of the clan. I'm the one that says, Christmas, itong gagawin natin. This is So parang yun ang naging role ko sa HAP. I just had the skill to sort of facilitate, to, move, to move. So it's like advocacy movement. Parang ganun.
Right, right. And speaking of movement, it has moved to 36,000 members.
Yeah.
I was just at the HOP group earlier, checking it out, and I was amazed because when I got in 8 years ago, I think it was only 15,000
More.
or 20, parang moving towards 20,000. Now it's like 36,000. Since you started talking about the homeschoolers of the Philippines community, let me just ask you, why do you think we need to build community? Why do we need to build the community as homeschoolers? Kasi there are a lot of homeschoolers din naman who are doing things independently, right? And they're happy in their little corner of the world. Is it really essential that we link up and build a community together?
Yeah, I think connection, connection is the biggest thing that will move. We were like going against the flow 10 years, 15 years ago. So now it kind of doesn't seem like that because everyone's gone homeschooling, right? But
Yeah.
in the earlier days, you really need someone to come alongside you. And you never find them easy. So online was the best way to find it. So one is for on a personal level, you really need to come alongside another, not unless you're gifted with a best friend or a barkada who homeschools. You really will have to figure out to find them maybe in church or online. So that was one reason. You need another, like a rope, diba? You're stronger with another. But also in the national level, if you want to create noise, strength in numbers, you organize yourselves. That was another reason to organize and to commune. Yeah.
And this is coming from somebody who already has an older sister who's homeschooling. I mean,
Yeah.
you already have a companion, you already have a mentor. I mean, you mentioned several names like the Tanchis and of course your
Yeah.
Ate Felici. You already
Yeah.
have mentors, and yet you still wanted to, build that community that
Yes. And I think
links.
maybe, sometimes you don't know why you just clicked it. Maybe I was not even thinking it was going to grow. But I think I always say the Lord is for homeschooling because he creates all of these channels to bless others, to reach out to others. So even if I really didn't have the grand big plan that it's going to grow this big, I think the Lord had. And so he just used you as a vessel. And so though I wanted to connect, I really didn't think it would become such a big force, in the support group, wing. And we've gone, diba, we've given birth to 80 other smaller groups
Mhm.
that
Right.
sort of serve the same purpose, but in a smaller scale or in a
Yeah.
more niche area. So I don't think I really had that in mind. It was just like
Right.
God said, led you, and then he he just
The
made it.
readiness, no, the
Yeah.
readiness to respond to the need of the hour. If you had known how big the work will be or how big the group will be, baka you'll be so intimidated to
Yes,
start.
definitely. And how much time it consumes and how much boundaries you have to set and all the things you've learned. uh Sometimes you feel like, oh, I should have just been quiet in one side, and maybe life would have been less busy or complicated. But then God calls you, so you just kind of learn. Yeah. And I've made the wonderful friendships, and you included, was born out of this connecting online first, diba?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I was just wondering, you must have encountered a lot of challenges in the process of
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
building this community. How
Yeah.
did you face these challenges and how did you overcome the challenges?
um you never really learn, right? There was no seminar for handling a community, diba? And so, like I told you, I had some because I'm sort of like the person in our family that does the facilitation, the listening to both sides. So there's that little gift of that. But I think it's uh just just not owning it, just not thinking you own it or that you're the leader of it. It's just a platform for everybody to share. You're just there to facilitate. So you're just there to put some boundaries on certain things that there's a common ground.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I didn't feel that I was responsible for everything because I just said, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is something we all
Right,
have. We're all adults.
right.
And the biggest challenges would be the opposing views on very hot topics.
Yeah, I can just
Uh,
imagine if you're in the
Yeah.
middle of that, right?
So we had to put some things in place na talagang it's not worth discussing certain things because it's just too divisive. It's just,
Right,
yeah, it
right.
just polar opposites talaga yung views. So,
Right.
yun yung mga things I learned na one is not to own it. Don't feel you own it. Don't feel
Right.
that, wow, you're the one who started it. You just actually, vessel nga lang. Vessel nga lang.
Right. I like
And then,
how you call yourself eh. You call yourself moderator. Like
yeah.
we have an announcement in the Homeschoolers of the Philippines. You would say, "Hi, I'm Donna. I'm your moderator." I love that. And I like what you're saying that, you don't own it, but it's like you don't own it, but everybody owns it. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
our community, right?
Yeah.
It's not just yours. You are the founder, but it's everybody's space.
Yes.
And so we need to
Wala
care
naman
for it.
sila. Wala naman din ako dun. Di ba? If there's
Right,
no...
right, yeah. So
So,
that makes everybody accountable to
yeah.
in the safekeeping of
Yeah.
the space, no, of the environment. So essentially, it's like everybody's homeschooling right now, and there are families who might feel the need to be a part of the community, but there's a plethora of
Yeah.
communities now. So can you give tips on how people can
Okay.
choose, how families can choose?
I think first, because we were first and we're the biggest, we're considered like the umbrella. The hub is the umbrella where everything just like comes together. But Facebook has created all of these learning tools, the units where you read about homeschooling and you read about the steps. And then there's a part there where you choose a support group. And so now in the age of online support groups, there's a lot of trial and error there. And there's a lot of finding your tribe and finding one who will recommend it to you. And so in that kind of fashion where you say people are accountable, when you invite someone, I always say in the mga, announcement is kind of come alongside that person in guiding, in those questions about which support group to join. And we already have a list of about 100 from A to Z. Una nga ang arrows and quivers kasi nandun siya sa letter A. And just recently, there was the Zambales group, a Zambales group that formed. So nasa Z. So, yun. So parang you have to educate kasi nga, when they think about it, all the choices are there. So what we're doing as leaders is we're just helping them weigh out the pros and cons and make decisions in homeschooling, providing support group,